Iran has just reopened the Strait of Hormuz. Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has announced the strait's reopening for the duration of the ceasefire with the United States. In fact, Araghchi has put out this post on social media saying that the strait is open. He specified that commercial vessels should pass through the coordinated route announced by Iran's Ports and Maritime Organization. And in fact, he's noted that the route is open for the duration of the ceasefire, which is due to expire on the 22nd of April. U.S. President Donald Trump has acknowledged Iran's statement. However, he's also added that the U.S. blockade on Iranian ports is still in effect. He also says that this will remain until the U.S. transaction with Iran is concluded. Now, this likely refers to a peace deal for which another round of talks is expected soon. Trump claims that the process should go on quickly and that most of the points are already negotiated. However, there has been contradictory report about the contents of any such deal. Remember, Trump had recently claimed that Iran has agreed to hand over its enriched uranium to the United States.
Very important is that Iran does not have a nuclear weapon, and they've agreed to that. Iran's agreed to that, and they've agreed to it very powerfully. They've agreed to give us back the nuclear dust that's way underground because of the attack we made with the B-2 bombers. So we have a lot of agreement with Iran, and I think something's going to happen very positive.
Now, Trump has reiterated that claim, and he's added that no money will be changing hands. However, reports citing Iranian sources say that gaps remain to be resolved between the two sides. The reports say that the U.S. has proposed a 20-year suspension of all Iranian nuclear activity during last weekend's talks, but Tehran has suggested a halt of 3 to 5 years only. Iran has also demanded that the international sanctions on it be lifted. In fact, Iran is also yet to react on Donald Trump's continuation of the American blockade at the Strait of Hormuz, despite it having declared open. And the reason Iran gave for reopening the strait was the ceasefire in Lebanon between Israel and Hezbollah. However, remember just hours ago, Israel's defense minister said that its operations in Lebanon were not complete.
We are inside Lebanon in the midst of a war against Hezbollah, with a frozen situation and a 10-day ceasefire. The IDF holds and continues to hold all the locations it has cleared and captured. The ground maneuver into Lebanon and the strikes on Hezbollah throughout Lebanon have achieved many gains, but they are still not complete.
However, Trump has issued a stern rebuke to Israel. He put up a post saying that Israel has been prohibited from bombing Lebanon. He's also added that enough is enough. We'll, of course, now have to wait and see if Israel complies, and if it does, for how long. The Iran-US ceasefire is scheduled to end on the 22nd of April. The Israel-Lebanon ceasefire is in place for just 10 days. If either is allowed to expire without a broader deal in place, remember the Strait of Hormuz may be blocked once again. All right, let me introduce my guests on the show. I'm joined by Mr. Heino Kling, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for East Asia. Mr. Kling, thanks very much for sparing the time. I want to start by asking you, this has been a big development, the Strait of Hormuz being reopened by Iran on the route that it says that has been marked by its own authorities. But how do you see this moving forward, really? Because there are some friction points, and major ones at that. Case in point is the nuclear enrichment. 20 years versus 3 to 5 years is what we're looking at.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I think you have pointed out the two major issues in the negotiation. One is the Strait of Hormuz and its role as an international waterway not controlled by Iran. And two, the future of Iran's nuclear program, and specifically the future of the enriched uranium that appears to be buried underground. These are the major points of contention in the bilateral relationship between the United States and Iran. I think we have some room for guarded optimism because it appears as if the ceasefire is going to be extended. I think we've also seen progress being made between Lebanon and Israel based on negotiations that the United States government has shepherded forward. So I am hopeful that progress will continue to be made.
You know, it's interesting, Mr. Kling, that the Israel-Lebanon ceasefire, in that Lebanon authorities have already said that there have been violations. And, you know, this, of course, goes on to say how vulnerable and how fragile this entire ceasefire has been, whether it's the America-Iran ceasefire or the Israel-Lebanon ceasefire. But, you know, there are, of course, several reports that suggest that there are 60 days of negotiations that will take place till there is a deal that is signed between America and Iran. Would 60 days be enough to resolve these issues that we are talking about?
We shall see. I think that, again, there's hope for some optimism. Ceasefires, by their very nature, can be very, very fragile, as you pointed out, particularly with respect to Lebanon and Israel, because remember you have a third party, Hezbollah, which is a terrorist organization that has been funded, trained, and equipped by Iran, and has been one of their most deadly proxy forces in the region. I'm sure that Hezbollah will continue to play a spoiler role. I think 60 days is a good starting point. What will remain to be seen, because as you've accurately reported, the United States position is that the blockade on Iranian ports is still in effect. And Iran's economy, as vulnerable as it has been, and in the feeble state that it has been, is going to be put under even more pressure because, as has been widely observed, they only have a capacity to store fuel for about 2 weeks, and then they're going to end up having to completely shut down all their oil production, which is the only lifeline that they have for any type of economic income for their already impoverished people.
So we'll have to wait and see how this moves forward. Of course, weekend is when several reports are saying that the second round of talks will take place. What happens in them and how this proceeds will decide, you know, how this entire war, this conflict ends, and hopefully it will end. But I'll leave it there. Thank you very much, Mr. Heino Kling, for joining us on WION and sharing your perspective.
Thank you.